After moving into a quiet rental cabin deep in the hills, Erin found an old leather journal tucked inside a kitchen drawer. It wasn't hers. The first page was dated 5 years ago and began with, "If you're reading this, then you're already part of it." Strange. She flipped through the entries. Someone named Claire wrote daily thoughts, simple things like chores, bird watching, weather. But halfway through, the tone changed. Claire started writing about hearing voices outside at night. Whispers, footsteps, lights in the forest that vanished when she blinked. Erin assumed it was fiction. Until the third night, when she heard knocking on the back door. At exactly 3:14 a.m., just like the journal described, every detail began matching. The same owl calls, the same power flicker, the exact phrasing of the whispers. Erin tried to ignore it, but the final journal entry froze her in place. It read, "I saw her today. She looked just like me. She was holding my journal." Erin dropped the book and ran to the mirror. Her reflection stared back. Normal. Until it blinked with the wrong eye. She turned away, but in the mirror, her double stayed still, staring, smiling. She tried to leave the next morning, but her car was dead, her phone wouldn't turn on, and the journal had a brand new page written in her own handwriting. Day 1. Erin has arrived. It started with a knock on Lila's door. A delivery man stood there, smiling politely. "Package for you," he said. She signed for it, confused. She hadn't ordered anything. Inside the box was an old sweater, a broken watch, and a faded photograph of her and her father, who had died 20 years ago. She had never seen that photo before. The return address simply read, "Returned by M. Ellis." The next day, another package came, her childhood diary which she lost in a house fire. Then a necklace she'd buried with her grandmother. Over the following week, more items arrived. Lost keys, forgotten letters, even her old dog's collar. Each one came in a plain box, always marked, "Returned by M. Ellis." She went to the post office. They had no record of the deliveries. The man on the counter told her, "No one by that name works in this district." That night, she finally wrote a letter and left it by her doorstep. "Who are you? How are you doing this?" The next morning, a final box appeared. Inside was her letter, unopened, and a mirror. Taped to the back was a note in delicate handwriting. "Everything that's ever been lost must come home eventually, including you." And in the mirror she saw herself, older, tired, dressed in the same uniform as the delivery man, holding a box, ringing a doorbell. One ordinary Tuesday, Aaron's phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. The message was short, full of static and barely audible, just his own voice whispering, "Don't take the 8:40 train." At first he laughed it off, probably a prank, but curiosity gnawed at him. He didn't remember recording any message, and the timestamp, June 21st, 10:12 a.m. 2 days in the future. He played it over and over, trying to hear more. The static cleared just long enough to reveal a faint scream in the background, his own voice again. "You won't come back." Still unsure whether to believe it, Aaron changed his routine. On the 21st, he skipped the 8:40 train. Later that day, news broke. The train had derailed, a catastrophic accident. 1 fatality, several injured, but the only victim listed was someone with his full name. Freaked out, Aaron checked the number again. It no longer existed. He tried to trace the voicemail, but it was gone from his phone. Deleted. Unrecoverable. Just static. The next night, another voicemail appeared. From the same number, same timestamp glitch. This time it said, "You survived once. Don't make me call again." When Jamie moved into her new apartment building, she noticed something strange on the floor plan. Room 306. Her lease mentioned it. The hallway was supposed to have it, but in real life, the numbers jumped from 305 straight to 307. No door, no space, no wall seams. It was like room 306 had never existed. She asked the landlord, who brushed it off as a blueprint error. "Old buildings. Weird histories." He smiled. But Jamie couldn't let it go. One night, she measured the hallway herself. The distance between 305 and 307 was too wide. That should have been another room. Then she found something even stranger. From outside the building, she could clearly see a window that matched where room 306 should be. It was lit. She climbed the fire escape and peered in. The room was empty, except for a small table, a lamp, and a dozen photographs pinned to the walls. All of them were of her. Different days, different clothes. Some of her sleeping. Some taken from angles inside her apartment. She ran to the landlord. This time, his smile dropped. He sighed, reached under the desk, and pulled out a key. "People always find it eventually," he said quietly. "But once you open that door, you can't unknow what's inside." Jamie used the key that night. The door to room 306 was there now, like it had always been. And the moment she stepped inside, her name disappeared from the building's tenant list. And a new photo went up on the wall. On a road trip through the countryside, Claire's GPS glitched and rerouted her through a town called Marrow Creek, a place she'd never heard of. The sun was setting as she pulled in. Small shops, cozy houses, kids playing in the street. It looked like something from another time. People waved. An old woman at the diner gave her free pie. She stayed overnight at a charming bed and breakfast with no Wi-Fi, no credit card reader. Cash only. The next morning, she packed up and left, waving goodbye. When she got back to the highway, her phone rebooted. No history, no signal, no trace of Marrow Creek on any map. Confused, she Googled it. Nothing. No photos, no listing. Just one result. A missing persons blog with her name listed under recent cases. It was posted 3 hours ago. Panicked, she turned around. But the road back was gone. Trees where asphalt had been. No sign the town had ever existed. She stopped at a gas station miles later trying to explain. The cashier paused and said, "Marrow Creek. My grandma used to tell stories about that place. Said it burned down in 1971. Claire checked her phone again. One new voicemail. No number. Just her own voice whispering, "Don't forget who you are, or they'll make you stay." Lena had worked in the same downtown office building for 6 years. Every day she took the elevator from the 14th floor to the lobby. Nothing unusual. But one rainy Thursday, she stepped in, pressed L, and the elevator stopped on a floor that wasn't labeled. No button lit up. The doors opened to a silent hallway with pale green walls and no windows. Confused, she stepped out, just for a moment. The lights flickered. Behind her, the elevator doors closed and vanished. There was no call button, no elevator shaft, just blank wall. The hallway led to a single glass door labeled HR, Final Processing. Inside, the office was empty, but on the desk was a file folder with her name on it, and photos she didn't remember ever taking. Some looked like security footage. Others were surveillance shots of her apartment, her car, even her childhood home. Then she saw the last page. A termination notice. Date of death, today. She ran, trying every door, every corridor, until finally she found a stairwell. She burst through and was back in her building's lobby. But everything was wrong. The receptionist didn't recognize her. Her badge didn't scan. Her name wasn't on the directory. And when she called her own phone, someone else answered. Someone with her voice, saying, "Sorry, Lena can't come to the phone right now." When Lucas moved into his new building, the landlord told him one thing: ignore apartment 9B, it's unoccupied. But that night, he heard faint music from the hallway, an old piano tune drifting from under the door of 9B. He knocked. No answer. The next morning, he asked his neighbors, but no one would talk about it. One man just said, "Some doors aren't locked for your protection, they're locked for theirs." Over the next few nights, Lucas kept hearing things. Footsteps pacing, a girl's voice humming. Once, he swore he saw someone looking through the peephole. Then, a note slid under his door. It read, "Thank you for hearing me." Finally, one night, the door to 9B stood open. He stepped inside. The air was cold and still. The apartment was empty. No furniture, no lights, except for an old upright piano in the corner. On it, a dusty photo. A young girl sitting at that very piano. Her eyes had been scratched out. On the wall beside it, scratched into the paint, "She never left." As he backed away, he heard the door slam. The piano played a single note. When he told the landlord, the man sighed and handed him a file. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 1994. 9-year-old girl vanishes after neighbors report hearing music night after night. Her name? Lily. Apartment 9B. Lucas never heard the piano again. But sometimes, when he walks past the door, he hears breathing. When Natalie took a weekend trip to a quiet mountain town, she stayed in a small, art-themed inn. The walls were lined with old oil paintings, portraits, landscapes, still life. She barely noticed them at first, but on her second night, something caught her eye. In a painting of a snowy village, deep in the background, was a figure, a man in a black coat, just barely visible between two trees. She looked closer. He wasn't mentioned in the plaque description, just a painting detail, maybe. Until she noticed him again, in another painting. This time a beach scene. Same coat, same hat, far off in the shadows of a pier. She went from room to room, checking every piece, and he was there, in every painting. Sometimes watching, sometimes walking, sometimes standing so still in the distance it made her skin crawl. Natalie asked the innkeeper who painted them. The old woman paused, then simply said, "No one knows. They came with the building." That night, Natalie dreamed of the man, standing at the end of the hallway, not moving, not blinking. When she woke up, there was a painting above her bed that hadn't been there before. It showed her room, exactly as it was. The bed, the window, and herself, asleep. But in the corner, the man stood, closer than ever, his hand resting on the bedpost. The innkeeper found her bags packed and placed neatly in the lobby the next morning. No sign of Natalie in the room, but the new painting remained. And now, the man wasn't alone. When Jordan moved into his new apartment, he started receiving letters. Handwritten, old-fashioned, with no stamp. Just a return address written in red ink. Flat 4C, Eldridge Tower. Problem was, there was no 4C. Eldridge Tower only had 3 floors. The first letter was short. I remember you. The second came 2 days later. You promised you wouldn't leave me. Jordan asked the building manager. She looked nervous. You shouldn't be getting those, she said. Just throw them away. But he didn't. He kept them, fascinated and increasingly uneasy. The handwriting seemed familiar. The tone was personal. The 4th letter arrived at midnight, slid under the door without a sound. It read, "Come home." The next day, Jordan went searching. No stairs led to a 4th floor. No elevator button. But late that night, he noticed something strange. In the lobby mirror, he could see a 4th floor hallway reflected behind him. He turned around. Nothing. But in the mirror, someone stood there, holding a letter, smiling. He ran, but when he reached his apartment, it was locked from the inside. His keys didn't work. Inside, he could hear faint breathing. On the floor outside his door sat one last envelope. The return address now said, Flat 4C, where you've always been. Darren always parked on level B2 of the underground garage beneath his office. It was quiet, dimly lit, and usually empty when he left work late. One night, around 11:30 p.m., he noticed a woman standing between 2 concrete pillars, still, silent, facing the far wall. At first, he thought she was lost. He called out. No response. He walked to his car, but before getting in, he glanced back. She was now facing him, still not moving, just watching. The next night, she was there again. Same spot, same posture. This time her head turned slightly as he passed, like she was following him without her eyes. He told security, but they found no one on the cameras. In fact, level B2 had been locked for maintenance for over a week. Darren had been parking there anyway. His pass still worked, somehow. Curious, he returned the following night with his phone recording. When he entered the garage, it was dead silent. No lights, no sounds. Then, through the screen, he saw her, clearly, even though she wasn't visible to the naked eye. His phone glitched and froze as she lifted one hand, pointing behind him. He turned. Nothing. But when he looked back at the screen, the figure was standing right beside him. Darren doesn't park underground anymore. But sometimes, on cold nights, he finds notes under his windshield wiper. Blank, damp, smelling faintly of concrete and perfume. And once, when he left late again, he passed the security mirror near the elevator. It showed two people walking to the garage.